We're back to finish off these divisions, as in short, we're going through all 8 divisions and building a fantasy football lineup based off of the best values in our fantasy leagues. It's a nice way to talk about every team and some players around the league. So if you enjoy high quality sports and or fantasy football content, this is the podcast for you. We're on the road to 500 subs, so if you enjoy the video or it helps you at all I ask for is you support us down below and follow along the journeys. We're going to have fantasy football content until the season ends. But without further ado, let's dive into this division's quarterback. The AFC East quarterback, no doubt, is going to be Tua Tagovailoa, as you can get him in the late 8th round. He's the 11th quarterback going off the board, and if you followed this channel at all this past year, you know that I love Tua Tagovailoa as far as fantasy football this season. He's currently my quarterback 9 on the year, and again, you can get him in the late 8th round. But he has been rising up the draft board, so we're going to have to keep an eye on that as we approach draft season here in about a month. But we know how talented his offense is, right? With Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, you name it, right? We know he has the mastermind of a coach offensively in Mike McDaniel. It all comes down to his health, and if he can stay on the field, if he's going to be mentally sharp after the brain injuries last year. But if he is healthy, I believe he's a top 10 quarterback, and I'm all in on Tua, if that is the case. So you can get him in the late 8th round. You can't really go wrong there if you miss out on the top guys. The running back for this division, I will say this is not my favorite running back from this division. Please remember that these are values for this division, right? And if you miss the first half of the series, we get one player from each team to fill out a lineup. It's a nice way to kind of build a lineup strategically to put together, the best overall lineup. But Breece Hall, for me, he is my running back 11 on the season, and I'm going to have him as the running back for this division. I like Ramondre a little bit better, but it just came down to, do I want Breece Hall and Juju Smith, or do I want Ramondre Stevenson and Allen Lazard, right? So I went with this route, and Breece Hall, he was a top 5 running backs in the 7 games that he played last year. He was averaging about 15 points per game. He was on pace for the number 7 finish in fantasy football. He was averaging about 6 yards per carry and 4th in yards after contact. He was ranked 4th in running back receiving yards with an elite 34% target share in the offense last year. Now granted, he had Zach Wilson and Mike White, not Aaron Rodgers, but to be fair to Aaron Rodgers' credit, we know he loves to check down to his running backs, so maybe that target share doesn't go down as much as we think it would coming off of that ACL injury. We do have to worry about the Dalvin Cook rumors, as Dalvin Cook says he's basically going to sign to be a New York Jet next season. We just have to wait on when. And if that is the case, we do have to worry about Breece Hall. He's gonna shoot down the rankings. But let's say, as of right now, what we know, he is in the backfield alone. And I am all in on Breece Hall if that is the case, especially if you can get him in the early to mid 3rd round as we approach draft season. Moving over to the receiver position, I kind of spoiled it, but I'm going to go with Juju Smith-Schuster here. As the Patriots, they have a little bit of everything in that wide receiver room, right? With Kendrick Bourne, with Devontae Parker, Juju Smith, Tyquan Thornton. They have a little bit of everything. But if there's one receiver that I think Mac Jones will love this year and will favor, I believe it's going to be the big physical slot receiver in Juju Smith-Schuster. Because for one, the Patriots have always favored the slot receiver, whether if it was Wes Welker or Julian Edelman. I'll preface by saying this: Juju isn't on their level, so he's not a Hall of Fame level receiver, but he is still a very viable option on the offensive side of the ball. And he might be the best receiver in this offense. And with Bill O'Brien returning as the offensive coordinator for this Patriots offense, I would not rule out a top 36 finish here for Juju Smith. This year, the offense should open back up more. We should see a better version of Mac Jones, maybe to his 2021 version. And if that is the case, I think Juju will benefit the most out of the receivers here in New England. And I think, there's a possibility he could finish as a top 36 wide receiver, which would make him one of the best wide receiver 3s here in fantasy football. But I wouldn't go any higher than a wide receiver 36. We're going to finish off here with a tight end you can get in the late 11th round. There's no risk with a pick like this late in your drafts. But Dalton Kincaid, and I've been super ambitious on Dalton Kincaid and his potential this entire offseason. If he landed in the right spot, what he could possibly do in his rookie year, I believed he could explode. And he landed in a really good offense. However, the chances of him being fantasy relevant this year are very slim, and I do want to mention that, as only 3 tight ends in the history of fantasy football have finished as a top 10 tight end in their rookie years. That is Kyle Pitts, Evan Ingram, and Jordan Reed all the way back in 2013. So shout out to him. 2 Gators on that list. But only 5 tight ends in the history of fantasy football have finished top 15 or so in their rookie years. Pat Freiermuth and Aaron Hernandez joined those top 3 in their rookie years. But guys like Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, Jimmy Graham, Rob Gronkowski, all 4 of those guys are 4 Hall of Fame level tight end talents. And those are guys that we know were dominant for years and years in their primes. But it took them time to get to that point. So again, Dalton Kincaid, super talented. We know he's going to bring a lot of versatility to this Bills offense, especially in the red zone. But you don't want to bet on touchdowns. And to be honest, you just can't expect a top 10 finish here in the rookie year for Dalton Kincaid. But let's recap here, as in the AFC East, again, let me remind you, these are not the best overall players for each team or even at their position in this division. However, this is a build a team, so you want to pick one player from each team to build a lineup, but of values. Because it's easy to come out here and say, give me Ramondre, Garrett Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, or Josh Allen rather, and you guys get the point, right? So we want to do values for our fantasy football drafts because it's easy to start them, but can you finish them? But we had Tua Tagovailoa, great value, I love him this year. Breece Hall, a guy who's my 11th running back on the year. Can he be healthy? And, do we have to worry about Dalvin Cook? Juju Smith and Dalton Kincaid, 2 viable pass-catching options for their offense. But again, those guys aren't going to really take you over the moon in your fantasy leagues. Regardless, that's going to do it for the AFC East. And I will see you guys I'll see you guys tomorrow, in all honesty, for the Hall of Fame game breakdown, as football is back finally. So check back tomorrow for another podcast here on the channel. And Friday, of course, we're going to get the NFC East out of the way as we're approaching draft season. And pretty soon here, I'm going to be releasing my top 200 to 250. So be on the lookout for that. I'll see you guys then. Stay happy, stay healthy. We're out.